Hi everyone, Dom Famularo back. The Artist Series at a Distance. Oh man, the magic is going to happen today. I've got with me Ray Parker Jr. Ray, thanks so much for joining us.
It's so good to be here. I love it.
You know, Ray, what amazes me about your career is it's so inspiring and so positive. And you think about musician, singer, songwriter, record producer, actor. But here's one that I want you to understand. Mentor is in there because every time I speak to a musician, your name comes up that you have mentored someone. When I interviewed Paul Jackson Jr. just a couple of weeks ago, he was right there. He said, man, Ray's my mentor. So you really have mentorship. That's a big part of what you do.
Yeah, it is. Especially now that I'm older, I've become a mentor, you know. And you know, what's funny is on a lot of things, I'm the youngest guy in the room. Like they just came out with a Marvin Gaye album called Funky Nation.
Yeah.
And when they talk about it, they say the late Hamilton one hand, and they mention Michael Henderson, wow, and all like that. And then they say a young Ray Parker Jr., only 17 years old, you know. So in a way, I think of myself as a young kid, but I'm no longer the young kid. I'm the mentor now. I'm the old guy. So it's pretty funny. I'm glad to be here to be the old guy, though. I will say that. I'm blessed. You know.
Age has treated you well with so much that it's just so great that you're sharing this with us today. But you know, you started in Detroit, and it was you were about like 6 years old when you started playing, and you started playing clarinet.
Yeah, clarinet. I had a band called the Stingrays, named after myself, and it was me, Ollie Brown, and Nathan Watts. You know, and by the way, all these guys are still musicians today. So we started off at Angel Elementary School, and that was it. Nathan
Watts, who is a phenomenal bass player,
yes,
has been with Stevie Wonder for many, many years as his musical director and bass. So you've surrounded yourself with some pretty talented people.
Yeah, I can't say I did it on purpose. They just happened to live down the street.
Those streets in Detroit produce an incredible amount of musicians that went on to perform, legendary musicians.
Yeah. There was a lot of magic, something strange in the neighborhood in Detroit, for sure.
Well, sometimes strange is good, so that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what happened at that point? What made you keep on continuing with music? What was the vibe around that time?
Well, Ollie was the main guy who made me want to play music because he wanted to be a music teacher when he grew up, and Nathan wanted to play music. Me, not so much. I wanted to do something else. I was thinking, well, maybe I'll be a lawyer, a doctor, or something else, you know. And Ollie just kept pushing. And so I actually stopped playing music at 9, 10 years old because I didn't want to play the clarinet and the saxophone anymore. I didn't like all the blowing. It wasn't for me to blow in the horn. You know, like now you hear all the saxophone, they're just in there blowing with their lips. I just didn't like blowing. But I remember seeing the Love and Spoonfuls on TV and John Sebastian plugging in a white guitar. And I thought, wow, man, I really like playing more than one note at a time. You don't have to blow. And if you want to get louder, you just turn the volume up, you know. And so I just fell in love with the guitar. And who would know? That was my gift. That was my gifted instrument, is to play the guitar.
So were there any other guitar players when you started playing guitar, anybody else that you were listening to at that time?
Yeah, I was listening to George Benson, Wes Montgomery, Jimi Hendrix, Phil Upchurch, and all of those guys. I seem to have met everybody except Wes Montgomery and Jimi Hendrix because they're gone. Yeah, so I listened to all the guitar work, and then a lot of my friends played the guitars too. Like early on, I met a guy named Earl Klugh, who turned out to be just a spectacular musician, and he had a cousin named Vaughn Klugh who was just as good, playing a different type of jazz and some other stuff. And so then I met the Funk Brothers, you know, Eddie Willis and Robert White and some of those guys, Dennis Coffey. And so I had a really, really good group of guys to pull from.
Boy, how do you figure that you were born at a time and in a place that connected you to these legends?
Yes, just a blessing. All I can say is I just grew up in the right neighborhood at the right time with the right musical influences. And I had the right gift at the right time as well. So all the stars aligned themselves in a perfect order.
How beautiful. So what happened now in Bohannon's House? This is the legendary, nightclub in Detroit. How old when you started working there?
I was 15 when I started working there, maybe a tad of 14. But I'll never forget, Bohannon heard me at I think a club called the Latin Quarter. And he said, man, I like the way you play the guitar. Can you come play with the big guys? Can you come play with the big boys? And I was like, who is this crazy guy? I mean, I don't even know if he knows. who is this guy? But he was really a serious guy, and he put me in the 20 grand, which had Marcus Belgrave and Russell Conway and all of the great musicians were there. James Jamerson played the bass, sometimes Michael Henderson. So, I mean, it was the real band, you know, and we were playing with the real Motown acts. And I just thought, wow, what an opportunity for a 15-year-old kid to come in. And, you know, I remember the first gig was with Gladys Knight and the Pips. You know?
It's incredible that you had that. So you hooked up with the Spinners, basically.
Yeah. I hooked up with the Spinners even before the 20 grand. So the Spinners, I'll never forget, he heard me playing the guitar and he had a chart. Billy Henderson, I'm talking about, of the Spinners, was the lead guy who put together the band. And he had a chart called Fascinating Rhythm. And he said, if you can play this, you're in the band. And so I played it, and that was that. I was on tour with the Spinners. And that was 13 or 14 for sure. That was younger.
So what was that like touring at that age?
Well, we couldn't go anywhere except to Indiana and Indianapolis, somewhere where we could drive for the weekend, because I had to be in school Monday morning. And my parents were real strict with that, you know.
You're doing these gigs. You found this to be obviously incredible that this is further sucked you into this business.
Oh, absolutely. Everything I did was sucking me into the business. And by the way, on the weekends, if I wasn't on tour with the Spinners, I was doing Jewish bar mitzvahs and weddings, you know. Like even now, a lot of my friends, they invite me to a bar mitzvah, and they're trying to explain to me how it goes. I said, dude, I've been to more of these than you have, you know what I mean? And I performed at more of these than you have. So I got it already, you know. And that's what I did every weekend was the weddings and the bar mitzvahs.
So what got you into, like at 16, you recorded and co-wrote your first song with Marvin Gaye. How did that come about?
Yeah, that was just through Bohannon again. You know, Marvin, after what's going on, he wasn't touring and stuff, and he wanted to record some more. And so they put myself, Michael Henderson, Wah Wah, Leroy Manuel, and Bohannon in the studio, and we got part writers on all those songs. So it was just a wonderful experience. You know, I didn't even know what songwriting was then. I was just coming up with my part, and they were nice enough to share some of it with me.
So were they negotiating percentages? Was this a part of the relationship of co-writing? How did that all work out at that point?
Well, we weren't really negotiating. They just gave me what they wanted to give me at that point. I mean, I couldn't negotiate because I didn't even know what I was negotiating for. I didn't even know what it was. You know, I was a kid. I was still, you know, having my mama drive me to the sessions darn near. But it was a wonderful experience. And now that these songs have come out, it's just a wonderful, exciting thing for me. You know?
Well, Ray, it's a beautiful story. And I always say, in certain people, their life as kind of like has got like a documentary movie involved with it, you know, where there's you know, fate kind of stepped in and guided the hands of your career, but you had the gift and the talent to deliver it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm a religious guy, and I'm on my knees every single night. I don't miss a night, you know, saying thank you, and I appreciate it, and I can't believe that it's happening to me.
At this point now, 72, you're a guest guitarist with Stevie Wonder's funk song, Maybe Your Baby.
Yeah.
From the Talking Book album. How did that connection come into play?
Well, first of all, it's hard to go past Stevie Wonder that fast. We got to spend a little time on that.
Please.
I was in college because I got there really, really early at 17 years old. And I was just having the worst time of my life. I just was having absolutely no fun. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And, you know, when you live in Detroit, everybody works for the big three auto manufacturers, you know. So they were training me to draw car parts for cars. I didn't want to draw car parts. I just want a Mustang and let me drive it, you know. I don't want to build no cars, you know. So I was having a terrible time, but I was doing what my parents wanted me to do. And fortunately for me, before my 18th birthday, Stevie Wonder called me up and said, hey, I'd like you to go to San Francisco with me, record an album for Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And then I'd like for you to work on my new album called Talking Book. And then I want you to go on tour with me and the Rolling Stones, you know. And I thought, wow, it sounds like a lot more what I want to do than go to this college and do this other stuff. So, it sounds simple to make a decision, but it really wasn't, because my dad had put a lot into me going to school and going to college. And, you know, he told me, hey, son, I'd save money for you to go to school since before you were born, right? And so I was going to totally break his heart and crush the family and the whole thing leaving. But I told him that was your dream, not my dream. I don't want to build car parts. I want to play the guitar. So we had, after a few days of, you know, a long powwow, a long talk, you know, he agreed to let me go. And the rest is pretty much history. But that really was a big turning point in my life. If somebody was to say, what is the biggest thing that happened to you? That year was the biggest year for me to turn.
So how do you figure Stevie Wonder called you? How'd that connection work?
Well, I heard he got my number from Bohannon and Michael Henderson and Marvin Gaye, all those guys. He said that when he called me, he said that every time I talk to somebody, they say, call this kid Ray Parker Jr., So that's what he did.
So at such a young age, you're developing this reputation as a player, as a writer. You're committed into the music industry. You go out, you do this recording with Stevie Wonder. What was that like to be in the presence of Stevie Wonder?
Well, first of all, I thought I was in the wrong business immediately. It's like, well, what the heck are you in the music business for? So I thought it was just the strangest thing. But you know what? Once I got there, instead of thinking how strange it was and how to fit in, I just joined into the party, and he was kind enough to show me how to write the songs and do everything. And I just learned an enormous amount of stuff. And I tell everybody right now, I graduated Wonder University, right? And that year I spent with Stevie Wonder. The next year I had a #1 record on Rufus and Chaka that I wrote because I learned so much from him. After
Stevie, is that when you did that too?
Yeah. I moved to California, and within a year I had a #1 hit record. So I learned a lot from Stevie Wonder. Make no mistake.
So what was it like composing that? Was there a formula that you started to discover?
No, I was way away from a formula. I was just trial and error in an apartment. I was just jamming and having a good time. So there was no formula to anything I was doing. In fact, there was no method or any madness to any of it. It was just a young kid doing where he's doing, somebody telling me where to go. If I was on the east side of the street or the west side of the street, just because I ended up there that day, you know what I mean? And it was just riding on the boat that was taking me there.
But Ray, what a great story of just trusting your instinct and being in the moment and living in the now.
Yeah, I was so living in the now. I had no plans, no anything, just going wherever I saw something. If I looked over to the left and it looked like it was green over there, then let's head to the left. It was just as simple as that. And, it's funny, when I talk to students and like say mentoring younger people, and they say, oh, well, how'd you plan this? I said, wasn't that many plans, y'all. You just kind of focus in on doing the best that you can, being the best that you can. And when you see an opportunity, you just jump on it, just go over there and jump on it. And it's just as simple as that. Nothing was really planned or thought out, or there was some plan to get from point A to point B. I just experienced it as I was going along.
So were there any lessons that you took on guitar? Was there any teachers or people that guided you along the way?
Yeah, Robert White was a big influence on me. I'll never forget. I love this song, I'm Losing You by the Temptations. And when I met him in a studio at Holland Ocean Holland, I started playing it for him. I was showing off pretty much, showing him how great I was. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, yeah, that's pretty good, son. I'm the guy who played it on the record, And I'm like, my ego started to get just a little smaller then. And so instead of running my mouth, I was like, well, can you show me how you played the Supremes thing and the so-and-so thing and how you did this? And he showed me a lot of that. And so was the instrumental Eddie Willis and a few other guys. And I'll never forget, when I moved to California and got into the studio scene in California, I sounded so different because of all these guys teaching me all these different things that they didn't do in California, that they did in Detroit, that it made me like, sort of a special type of entity when I got to California, because what I was playing was something new.
So was that like a Detroit sound that you had within that you took to California?
Absolutely. And they just loved it in California. And then the part where I got lucky is Eddie Willis, Robert White, and Dennis Coffey, and all those guys, they stayed in Detroit. So they gave me all the tools, and just let me go out to California by myself and take over. I mean, it was just, I didn't have any competition. It was just this sound or not, So it was a wonderful experience.
Boy, how fantastic. So when did the Barry White relationship come in?
As soon as I got to California, 1973 in the summer. I went to a Barry White session, and he had a song playing. And I know he plays his music really, really loud. And I went and hit stop on the tape recorder. And you could hear a pin drop in there. Everybody thought I was going to get killed, And I just said, hey, Mr. White, I got an idea for this song. And he's looking around the room. He got dead quiet. He's like, who the heck is this kid to stop my music, he better have. So he looked at me and says, well, get out there and play it then, real loud. And that was my moment. It was do or die then, So I played something that he really, really liked, and we were good buddies ever since.
What gave you the courage to be able to step up to that plate and take that swing?
Well, you know what? When you're born in the inner city and you don't have anything, sort of, and you're already, I'm going to say, not at level 0, but you're already down, there's nowhere to go except up. So you practice as best as you can, and you do your music as best you can, and you believe in yourself at a level unlike no other. Like my kids are sort of born with a silver spoon in their mouth, so they're a little apprehensive, they're a little scared, they're a little this. Me, I had really nothing to lose. I mean, if you punched me out, kicked me on the curb, well, I was already on the curb before I got here, So there was really nothing to lose. So I guess I was a little bit crazy, you could say. I did things then that I would never do now.
Ray, this is a lesson in humanity. You were humble enough, but yet the point is you realize, why not?
Why not? And I want to add that everything I was going through, Barry White, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, they'd already gone through the same thing, by the way. So the part that I didn't really realize is they looked at me and said, well, you know what? I was that kid before. Let's give him a chance. Don't kick him out just yet. Let's give him a chance. And so Barry White and Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder, they gave me a lot of chances to try things new that even I didn't know about, that I didn't know I could do, right? And they gave me those opportunities, and I was fortunately enough to come through on some of those.
Boy, how beautiful the fact that you had, but you have a wide variety. Listen, from Jimi Hendrix to Wes Montgomery, that's a pretty wide band.
Oh yeah.
Knowledge in there in the process of what it was. You went on to write songs that you did session work. This amazes me, Ray. It really does. The Carpenters, Rufus and Chaka Khan, the Supremes, Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, Denise Williams, Bill Withers, John Luke Ponty, The Temptations, The Spinners, Boz Scaggs, David Foster, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Herbie Hancock, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, and that's just to name a few.
Yeah.
So how did all of this start to happen? How were you organizing all this?
Well, I was organizing myself. I didn't have an agent or manager to do it for me. I just pick up the phone and write it in my little black book and book it, It's amazing. The people that I've worked with have just been wonderful, and just a wide variety, from Dizzy Gillespie, doing some of the jazz stuff, to the Rolling Stones doing some rock and roll. And I just finished an entire album right now for Shania Twain. And so people hear that and be like, Ray, what's he doing with Shania Twain? So I'm all over the place. I'm everywhere.
Well, I think what's happening with country music too, that's expanding in what it is.
Yeah.
And that's opening up to a whole nother level of how they deliver that. And you seem to be the perfect chameleon in your style, that you can adapt and do adapt to any genre.
Yeah. Yeah. I like all different types of music, and I like to play everything. So, like you said, I've written songs, I've sang songs, I've done a whole bunch of stuff, but my love is playing the guitar. I just truly love playing the guitar. And that's my access point to everything, is playing the guitar.
So what was it like, let's say, Rufus and Chaka Khan, what was it like working with them?
Well, first of all, they live next door to me. And I wish I could tell you, oh man, I can't wait to work with Rufus and Chaka Khan. I never heard of them. I didn't know who they were. And so when Andre Fisher, we had been playing together, doing a couple of sessions and stuff, he looked at me and said, that song you got to love. It wasn't called that at the time. It was just the song I got. And I tried to get Barry White to do it. I tried to get Stevie Wonder to do it. Nobody would record it. So the way the song got to them is nobody else would record it. So he looked at me and said, hey, we'll record your song. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got an unknown band nobody's ever heard of recording my song. This is what a loser I am. And I'll never forget, we went in the studio, cut it. The track sounded good. I was like, yeah, that's great. Now what do we do? And then next thing I know, they put Chaka Khan on it, but nobody knew who she was at the time either. Yeah. And when I heard it back, I went, oh my gosh, she can really sing. I mean, this girl sounds like unbelievable. This is incredible. And sure enough, the record turned out to be a smash. So it was like a blessing that Barry White and Stevie Wonder didn't want to do it, because we got this new girl doing it who really delivered the song, who really sang that melody, and she just made it pop. And so there I am again. I'm trying to go this way, but the world is taking me that way, And so who knows, who knows?
If there's ever a story about fate and destiny
Yeah.
in the music industry, Ray Parker Jr., you own it.
Yeah.
What was it like with Jean-Luc Ponty? I mean, that's a completely different type of music.
Yeah. I remember those songs really, really well in the 70s. I did a couple of his albums, and they were wonderful. He was a very talented guy, came from France. I had no idea how important his music was at the time, that I would, years later, people said, man, you work with Jean-Luc Ponty? I mean, that's like a big deal. I was like, yeah, man, we were kicking it, having fun in the studio, playing. And I must have got it right because he called me for more than one album. So, he must have liked it. And we had just a wonderful time. And even today, his records stand the test of time and they stand up. And he's very, very well respected. And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Listen, I absolutely love your humility, Ray. You really are. You really have both feet on the ground. You are completely centered in knowing who you are and how fortunate you have been blessed in this journey that you're on.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a bigger fan than I am a star. I have worked with some of the best people, and it's the talent. It's not how famous they are. It's the actual talent when you're in the studio with them or when you're working with them that gets me excited. And so instead of me thinking of myself as the greatest, I think of all of them as the greatest, and I'm taking something from each one. I'm learning something from each experience that I can go and put into my music or that I can carry with me in my toolbox to the next recording session, let's say.
Incredible. So your first bona fide hit, You Got the Love, co-written with Chaka Khan. How'd that come out? How'd you work with it to get that to happen?
Well, reason why it's co-written is I had the song written, but I left town or something. They couldn't find me to finish it. And then so she finished the lyrics and sang it. So I wasn't there when she actually sang it and did that stuff. And that's why it's a 50-50 partnership. And it just came out wonderful. I mean, the song, when I heard it, I was like, wow, this is unbelievable.
Did you work on any kind of relationship as far as now 50-50, with the business side of it? Did you have at this point now, were you thinking about a publishing company or how to negotiate this, or were you kind of figuring?
No, I didn't. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just going along with it. I ended up starting a publishing company. I think at that time it was Recrap Music, Parker spelled backwards, so, And so I started putting these entities in it. And I didn't really have a bad time until I wrote this tune called You Make Me Feel Like Dancing.
Yeah.
And when I wrote that, I got no publishing, no songwriters. I just got what you call screwed, Yeah. And I learned a lot from there. I said, this will never happen again. And it never did, And from that moment on, I started getting all of my songwriters, all of my publishing, and I had to get into the business of it and learn that part of it. But, what's interesting is, as bad as that was to me, and that song won the Grammy for Song of the Year, which really is painful, hurts. I still don't have a Grammy like that. But that song propelled me so far because Clive Davis and everybody in the music business knew that I put together that song. Yeah. So my first record deal was like my third record deal or my second record deal because I was just coming off of that as a hit. Hits with Barry White and Patti LaBelle and Shaka Khan. And so my first record deal paid me a lot of money, which changed my entire life. So even the bad news turned into good news, And sometimes you have to look at it as the wine glass half full or half empty. And maybe it's half full and you should appreciate it.
Boy, what a beautiful saying. I always look at it about when they say the glass is half full or half empty. I'm just so thankful I even had a glass. Yeah,
right. You mean I got a glass? Yeah, somebody put something in the glass, right? Yeah, there you go.
Fantastic. So at this point now, did you put together Raydio, Raydio, Raydio? When did that happen?
That happened right after that You Make Me Feel Like Dancing song. And I'd been in the studio recording in LA for a couple of years. And so I'm now 21 years old and I'm putting together my first band. And I wasn't so sure about me singing at the time. I hadn't really discovered where I should be. So I was trying to pattern myself like the Ohio Players and Earth, Wind and Fire and Commodores, where everybody sings and everybody plays and you mix it up. I thought that would be a safe way to go. But it was my band, so I wanted to be the leader of the band. And then a friend of mine came up with the idea, well, let's call it Raydio and put a Y in it. And I thought, that's a wonderful idea, Raydio. So I get my name in it, and it's really a neutral name. It wasn't like a a black name, a white name, a rock and roll name, a blues name. I said, with the name Raydio, we could play anything, right? It's just radio. So it could be jazz, it could be funk, it could be rock and roll, it could be anything. So I thought that was a wonderful name.
Two places at the same time in 1980, and then A Woman Needs Love in 81, both gold albums. I mean, you really have this Midas touch.
Yeah. Well, I got really fortunate because the first album was the first Raydio album, Jack and Jill. We did gold, and I think the single almost went platinum. Yeah. 1.8 million on Jack and Jill, and it was just wonderful. Then Can't Change That came, which was probably the biggest turning point in my life because everybody thought Jack and Jill was like a nursery rhyme anomaly song. You know, he's not going to have another hit. Then when the second album hit, kaboom, everybody got shocked. So now he's got 2 gold albums in a row, and we thought he was done after the first one, you know. And then 2 places at the same time hit, Woman Needs Love hit, and then, of course, by the time I got Time in Love with the Other Woman, it was my first solo album. And then that hit too. So I just had one heck of a good run.
So you continued on your solo career, 8 top 40 hits, including the hit single, The Other Woman. And then that led you into 84 to Ghostbusters.
Yeah, how about that? And I had actually slowed down before Ghostbusters because my parents had gotten sick in Detroit. And so I stopped making records, sort of, not disinterested or not because I had money, because it wasn't about the money anyway. But I actually went back home to take care of my mom and dad and spend more time with them. Right. And so I'm thinking, well, okay, in order to do that, you got to give up a lot. You got to give up your career, or, you know, you got to slow down and go back. And then I got really, really blessed. I mean, Gerald Busby called me that next January and said, would you go see these kids in Boston? You know, and it was cold in Detroit. And it was cold in Boston. So I'm like, no, I can't go to Boston. I'm not going to Boston. And then he came up with the idea, well, let's get a jet airplane and go to the Bahamas and see him play in the Bahamas. And that was about February. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. You know, so we go to February. We party so hard, me and him in the Bahamas, that we actually missed the kids' show. We don't even see the show. And the kids were like, well, how'd you like the song? I was like, I didn't know what to say. I missed it, you know. But what was fortunate is at the time, I didn't really feel like writing any new songs. And they were like, you don't have to write a new song. They want to record one of your old songs you wrote when you wrote Jack and Jill, you know. So I flew to LA because I had my recording studio, American Studios, with a Y in it, R-A-Y, American Studios was there. And so that way I could cut it right quick. So I was in LA, and we cut the new edition, Mr. Telephone Man, which turned out to be a #1 record that year, one of their biggest hits, you know. And the same week, at the end of the week, I was at Spago's having lunch, and I looked up and I saw this black poster there. And I was like, what is that? Why would they put a black poster on Sunset Boulevard across from Tower Records? You know? And then they started painting this red circle. And before I could say good, what the heck is a red circle going on a black poster? Why is this happening? And my phone rang, and it was Gary LaMelle, who I'd known from the Barry White days, who I was dating his secretary, Sandy, and didn't know it. And he called me and said, hey, you got to help me with this film. And that film turned out to be Ghostbusters. He was 100% sure that out of all the people they had called, they were unhappy with all the songs they got. He says, you're the right guy to write this song. And he said, I'm so sure that you can do this that I'll pay you $50,000 to stay in town 3 more days and work on it. And if we don't like the song, you keep the $50,000, which I thought, that's a heck of a deal. We got to do that now, don't we? You know. And sure enough, you know what? He was right. I did write the song that everybody liked for the film. I don't know why he thought I could do it. I didn't think I could do it, but he thought I could do it. And there we go again.
I mean, listen, the song is classic. It is a part of American culture. It's a part of world culture now with the movies. So you just hear the beginning part of that song, and it's just so defining. Where'd that all come from? How'd you put that together? What was the feel, the changes? How did it all happen?
Well, the director told me sort of what he wanted, you know, musically. I thought the music I could cut pretty quick. You know, I'm a professional musician. I know how to put it together. Yeah. But the problem with that song, or what made it so difficult that no one else could write it and everybody tried, was that he wanted the words Ghostbusters in the song. Now, it's not fair now because you've heard the song. Yeah. But if you try to sing, ooh, we're doing it, Ghostbuster, it's a terrible word to sing. I mean, there's no way you can sing that song, sing that word and sound cool. I mean, it just doesn't happen. You sound corny whenever you sing it. So the first thing I had to figure out is, maybe I should never sing that word Ghostbusters in the song, even though he said he wants it in the song. I got to let a crowd or let somebody else do it, right? And then I got fortunate. You know, there's a part of the film where the guys come up and they got the 3 or 4 Ghostbusters and they show the phone number underneath it. And they're pulling their packs out like this. Well, you know, at 4 a.m, that looked a whole lot like the bug commercials and the Roto-Rooter stuff and, you know, all of these bug, you know, stuff where they pull their packs out and they go squirt. And I said, well, I said, the problem is I can't sing Ghostbusters. I got to say, who you going to call? And let the audience go yell Ghostbusters. And because I'm looking at the commercial right in the film. It's got the phone number right under the guys in the film. And I said, that's the whole key to this thing is just say who you going to call and Ghostbusters. And it's already in the film. And the director loved it. He saw it the same way and it worked. And then the other thing that I thought of is when I saw the Ghostbuster characters in uniform, it reminded me of military uniforms. So the song is real military. So that's where you get the da 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 do 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 do. So it's almost like a cadence. I even give some homage to Gomer Pyle at the end. I can't hear you. You know, like Sergeant Carter hit it. You know. So I see the Ghostbusters is military, very strict military cadence thing, and that whole military let the crowd do it. Who you gonna call thing just went crazy. You know.
So here you are. You put the song together. This movie hits. What did that must have felt like completely, you know, out of control?
Well, now I was going to hyperspace. I thought, but like before I had a bunch of hit records on different artists and a bunch on myself. I'm at that time, I think I got 7 or 8 golden platinum albums in a row. And I'm at the height of my career. And I'm thinking, well, I just got a new hit on New Edition. Life can't get any better. Then Ghostbusters comes and it's like hitting a baseball and you never saw the baseball again. Where did it go? It just went through the lights and just kept going to outer space. And it's just, it's a crazy song. I mean, there's no end to Ghostbusters, no matter. In fact, it's so big that it overshined everything else I'd done in my entire life. Like when I go to a restaurant now, people don't even know that I had a musical career other than that song. And they just go, who you gonna call? Or I ain't afraid no ghosts. Then they apologize for it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Of course you meant to do it. I'm okay, you know, we good. You know. Or they ask me, are you tired of hearing that song? You know, no, I'm not tired of hearing that song. I mean, it's what defines me, and it came. I don't know who knows where it came from, but it's an unbelievable song. It's a wonderful gift.
Well, it's a gift that you take it as a gift, but we all take it as a gift because when you play it, the spirit of the song, the fun of the movie, and
everybody's happy. Everybody's happy.
Recognizable. It's positive. It's fun. I mean, you really nailed it when it came to the right song at the right time in the right movie at the right point in American history.
Yes. And I got to tell you, what's the best part of it, you can take some kids that look at me, who's now an old guy, and they're not paying me any attention. And when their dad says, you know, that's the guy that wrote Ghostbusters. Oh, my God. They light up like a Christmas tree, right? They want to sit on my lap. I mean, all of a sudden, they want to touch the old guy all of a sudden. You know, hey, before it's like, you know. Now it's like, he did Ghostbusters. You wrote who you going to call? I mean, they love me. Can we get a picture with you? Can we sit on your lap? I mean, you know, it's crazy. You know? And the same thing was true of my own sons. You know, my sons were born after that song. And I go to school and I was their hero. Right? People say, your dad wrote what? Ghostbusters? Would he come to class and sing it with us and play with the kids? You know, so it was just the most exciting experience of my life. And it's bigger than any blessing I could have ever asked for because I wouldn't have known to ask for anything this big. You know, it wouldn't even, it's past my own comprehension. You know, hey, I'm just a guitar player from Detroit still.
Well, there goes that humility again. I like that. That's for sure.
But it's real. I mean, I'm the guitar player from Detroit, you know.
How beautiful. Let's talk about the business side. You know, part of what we do with our listeners here, there's a lot of young people that watch this and they're fans of yours and they're fans of trying to learn how they can do their own thing. How do you organize yourself? Are you a disciplined person?
I'm a very disciplined person. My dad taught me early on. When I was 7 or 8 years old, he took me to the Commonwealth Bank. It's popping in Detroit. Okay. He took me to the Commonwealth Bank, and he said, son, how much money do you have in the bank? And I remember I had about $800 because my relatives were giving me a bunch of birthday money and stuff like that. And he says, what is the interest on the $800 that you make every year? And back then, you know, I think we we're getting 7 to 8% on the bank account. And so I figured it out. Maybe I make $50 a year, $40 a year. My dad said, that's all the money you have to spend every year is $40. He says, that enough? I said, no. He said, well, this bank account is like the goose. He said, this is the golden goose. He says, if you want more money, you got to make the goose bigger. He says, but if you ever eat the goose, he says, there's a phrase that we call your goose is cooked. Right? He says, if you eat the goose, your goose is cooked. Right? And then the party's over. He says, everything stops then. He says, but if you want more money, you fatten up the goose. So my dad taught me at an early age to never spend the money that I make on things that I want. The money that you make goes into making more money for you to spend. And that concept has been the simplest lifesaver of life. He said, write down your bills. I said, okay, you got your car note, electric bill, phone bill, food bill. He says, okay, if you got $3,000 worth of bills and you got $2,000, what's the first thing you're going to do with it? And I'm like, I'm going to pay my car note or pay my phone bill. So he says, wrong answer. He says, the first thing you do is pay 10% to yourself. He says, because otherwise your subconscious doesn't know that you're more important than the car and you're more important than the phone. So you pay the most important person first. And he says, I don't care what you made. If you made 20 cents that year, 2 cents goes to you first. You know what I mean? And so learning that was probably a hard lesson because I was like hard-headed like everybody else in the world. Yeah, but I got to do this. You don't have to do anything. The government allows you to put the money away in your IRA. Even if you file bankruptcy, they wouldn't take it from you. OJ's proved it by they committed him murder, and they can't even take the money he makes off of his pension plan. Yeah. So when it goes in there, it's in the safest spot you can put it. And so those are the lessons I learned from my dad, who, by the way, worked at Ford Motor Company 48 years. It wasn't like he was a super intelligent guy. I don't think he went past the 4th grade, but he knew that much to teach me. And so fortunately for me, I've always taken the money, put it aside. And I've never bought things that I couldn't afford or did crazy stuff. And if you build on that from a young age and you let it go forward, next thing you know, you really got some asset value. And then I got lucky, by the way. In the 90s, I started taking a lot of my pension and welfare money and investing it in this technology stuff because I really like the technology stuff. Well, who would ever think that it would go like that? I mean, the technology boom went crazy. I mean, it went to a place that I can't even imagine the numbers would ever go to. And then I thought I had done really, really well with that. And about 9 years ago now, this little small car company started with the electric car, And I said, I'm going to put a bunch in this, So I put a bunch of money in this little electric car company. And Lord forbid, I mean, this thing has gone like through the roof, just like a rocket ship. And I'm like, this happened to me. I can't, I don't know what to say here. So I've been very fortunate in investing and doing a bunch of things. And again, I'm not any genius. I tell everybody I'm still a little guitar player from Detroit. I just got maybe a little bit of street knowledge and a little bit of sense to pay attention to things and just do the right things.
Well, it sounds like the advice that your dad gave you really kind of paid off because it is.
My dad's advice was the payoff of it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is sound, fundamental business, financial advice that if everyone can live by.
One more thing I like to say. Also, a big mentor of mine was Bill Cosby. And Bill Cosby sort of echoed my dad. And I'm going to tell you this. Both of them always said, son, you're going to sign your own checks. You're going to write your own stuff out. He says, you put that stuff in somebody else's name and you're in trouble. If you look at Oprah's show, she tells you the same thing. Everybody tells you the same thing. Everybody's like, I got my manager. I gave the money to. Well, you get the money to the manager, it's going to be gone. Okay. Yeah. It's just 9 times out of 10 it is. You got to do it yourself. And so they taught me to sign my own checks, write my own names, put everything in my name. And what a blessing that was. What a disguise. In fact, my dad had even a saying better than that. If you take a dollar bill and you look at the back of it, it says, in God we trust, on the dollar bill. And my dad said, now they wrote it for you in plain English on the dollar bill. If you trust anybody else with that dollar, it's on you. He said, but it says on the back of the dollar, in God we trust. Give it to God and nobody else. Okay. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. That does say in God we trust, right on the back of a dollar bill. So, some of the lessons are right there in front of your face.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So when you organize yourself, do you write things down? Do you have online calendar? How do you organize all of this intensity in your life?
With computers. Boy, they came out with computers in the early 80s, like QuickBooks and all that kind of stuff. And that saved me because I'm not a good pencil and paper guy. I let the paper be all over the floor, But the computer, I like electronics. I like the electric guitar with the amp. So I like electronics. And, you can put tons of office work on a computer in folders and just store it away on a little hot thumb drive and carry it with you anywhere in the world and have it in this outer space somewhere in clouds and all this kind of crazy stuff. So it's nice to keep it all. It's really, really wonderful.
How fantastic. So during this pandemic, it has changed the world upside down in the music industry. No one's really touring this past year. What have you done to adapt to this crazy time that we're living in now?
Well, I hate to tell you, I'm not adapt to it at all. I mean, I'm bored out of my mind from sitting at home too long. And like Herbie Hancock wrote something on the internet that I thought was interesting. And he wrote, not just the people are upset they can't play no music. Right? Like he wants to get out there and play. Well, I feel the same way. We've gone past money and everything now. The musicians want to go play just like the people want to come to a concert and hear it. And neither one of us can do anything. All our hands are tied. And for a lot of my friends who just play instruments for a living and they didn't have any other source of income, they're completely 100% out of work. So it's been a year of helping others and trying to get others going and stuff like that. But for musicians who play gigs and who don't write songs and who haven't been fortunate enough to do the other stuff, they are 100% out of business right now. And it is just the worst thing I've ever seen since I've been here.
Boy, it's an amazing time that we're living in for sure. And plus, on top of the fact that, artistically, we have to keep ourselves at a certain level. We have to keep our business at a certain level. And then we have to balance our personal life and our family. I mean,
Exactly.
That's a lot to balance. How do you balance all that together?
I'm the luckiest guy and the most blessed guy on the planet. I have a wonderful wife who balances it for me pretty much. I got 4 sons and they're all wonderful kids. I mean, we don't have any fights when I'm not trying to get them out of jail or anything. They're all wonderful kids. And then it's me who probably is the idiot of the family who maybe spends the most money or whatever, but I'm not that bad either. And we're just very fortunate. And, me, I have other careers that I do besides just play concerts, produce. I got writers, royalties, publishing, investments, own real estate, so I got lots of different ways to make it. Where some of my friends and my best friends, all they have is playing music and they're 100% out of business right now. And so it's such a sad moment.
Well, it seems like you have found this incredible balance, and it seems like you have been given this incredible blessing of sheer common sense. And you've applied this common sense to every part of your life. In closing, all these young kids that are listening and they're watching this and they're hearing every word that you're saying, what kind of advice would you give to this next generation to allow them to kind of feel the essence of this incredible career that you have had and continue to have? What would you tell them for them to live their passion?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell them, first of all, they got parents like I did, and I'm sure their parents want them to do something. And I'm going to say, you only live once. And instead of worrying so much about failing or what if it doesn't happen, or I can't try this because what if it doesn't happen? I better do the safe route out there. There is no safe route. I don't care what you do. Nothing is safe. Everybody thought in Detroit, if you worked for GM or Ford, it was safe. Well, they all went out of business too. And those are the biggest companies in the world. So in my opinion, you only live one time. You only got one crack at it. You got to do what turns you on and what makes you happy and do it to the best of your ability. And if things go wrong and you really, really can't do it, I think you will at least be happy that you tried. And then you will at least know you gave it your all and you did it. But more than likely, people are so worried about failing. What about worried about winning? What's wrong with winning? Why do you have to fail? Maybe more than likely, if you really, really love it and you put your all into it, you'll be the one that makes it and you can do it. And let me tell you, if you're doing something that you enjoy, you will never work a day in your life.
That really says it all right there. And I'll tell you something, even though you work hard and you put incredible amount of hours into it, you have blessed us because instead of going to work. You're going to play.
Oh, I'm going to play. I tell everybody that. That's right. I go to play. They pay me to play. Have fun.
Well, I'll tell you, that little guitar player from Detroit has really kind of inspired many people. And I feel, as Paul Jackson Jr. said it, your mentorship has been absolutely life-changing. And I believe this interview has been a part of people experiencing a little bit of mentorship from Ray Parker Jr. for sure.
Well, I hope so. God bless everybody. And I hope all the young kids out there go for it. I want to see them on TV.
Ray, I thank you so much for making the Artist Series at a distance. You are an absolute saint. Thank you so much. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you real soon someday.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel. We'll see you real soon.